Okay, we're at Dreamhack. Quake tournament's done. I'm here with Rapha, finalist for like, what's that, like the 5th or 6th time or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's 5 in a row.
Okay, so this time you didn't win, but you were facing someone new, facing Evil. How about going into the final? Like, did you know if he could beat Cypher?
Yeah, I tried to, since I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this tournament with how much Shootmania I've been playing, I really tried to just check out as quickly as I could what kind of shape other players were in, and based off his performance at Edroids and his recent online performances, he'd been improving like pretty well, and he's been playing very, very consistently. So I knew going into this tournament, no matter who he played, he was going to be a super tough challenge for. Yeah, because he has a very imposing style. I mean, he plays extremely aggressive, but not the same kind as Avic. It's totally different. And sometimes it can really backfire on him, but for the most part, he, like with how his aim is, it really tends to work out for him, and he can really start to push control on the map and really get a stranglehold on you.
So in the playoffs, I think you played Kilson first?
Yeah, that's correct.
How many times in the past, like say the last year or so, have you faced Kilson much in playoffs?
I'm trying to think real quick, because he didn't go to QuakeCon. I don't think he was at Dreamhack Summer. But I played him. I can't remember where I played him at, but I don't know. That's just, again, I just looked at it like going into it. Again, like I tried to watch some of his games real quick, and he was playing very well. So obviously, if I remember correctly, he got second at Edroids, and yeah. I mean, if his aim is on, he's so hard to beat because he takes some chances to where, like, if he hits the shot, it really, really pays off. So going into the game, I just really tried to focus on myself and make sure that I wasn't giving into mistakes, and that if he committed to those fights with aim and stuff like that, to try to take those chances with shots, that he really paid for it if he managed to get the kill. So we had some really interesting like results as far as maps went and like how the games went. Like the DM13 I played against him the first game was one of the craziest I've ever played. For example, I mean, I spawn next to the red, and then he spawns at the cubby like right under the LGYA, and I fall to red, and he didn't hear me fall to it, so he just straight up jumped down, and we have a pummel fight at the beginning of the game. And then he somehow gets control because I was impatient, and he goes up 6-2, and then I rally back and end up winning like 10-6 or something like that. It was like really hectic, then really slow, and then really, really fast again, like the pace of the game. And then Silence was one where I had control for most of the game, and then he was really rallying back very well, and I managed to hold it out. And then Airwalk was one of those games. He took those rail chances and stuff like that, and he was hitting, and you know, I paid for it. And then I shut it out on Hectic. I played a really solid game. I actually played really, really well on that map the whole tournament. I just felt so comfortable on it, and yeah, I just imposed my will every time.
He's actually one of the guys, so even though he's been outside the Big Four, as we call it, since he had that win over you at Gamescom a couple of years back, it seemed like you were one of the players, along with Avic as well, actually, where he actually felt like he could beat you, perhaps. Do you feel as though when he plays you, he just plays straight up, or does he do anything different in how he approaches it? What do you think?
Well, I feel like now that all the top players that we've played each other so much, we kind of get the feel of, we know what the other person's going to do. So I think each time that we play, we're always trying to throw in some new wrinkle. Try to change just a little something to throw the other off guard. Whether that be maybe me, for example, trying to play really aggressive for a short period of time so that they're not expecting it, or vice versa. Or just like trying different positions and angles to catch each other out. As far as he's concerned, whenever I've played him, and especially this time, I just knew I needed to be aware of try to be aware of rail angles that other players don't use, because he's just so proficient with the rail. And you know, that came into play, and I just yeah, I managed to read it really well, and except on Airwalk, obviously he did an amazing job. Yeah, I mean, it's always slightly different because we're trying to outsmart each other.
He told me, I asked him about his style at this tournament, and he said he's like one of those players who doesn't necessarily have like a plan going in, like I'm definitely going to do this or thinking too far ahead. Just, I think it sounds more like he kind of just is reacting or it's spontaneous more in the moment. With your style, where it is a bit more calculating perhaps, do you have a specific game plan going in to play that, or are you just taking each situation as it comes? Like how do you play that type of a player?
Oh, okay. I really try to look at each opponent and like what their strengths and weaknesses are, and I try to keep in mind for a couple situations that either A, I want to avoid, or that I want to exploit. And then as the game is progressing, based on how I feel, like are they fighting as well as normal in this area of the map, you know, or is their rocket launcher as strong as normal, etc. Like, and then from there, like, you know, I change up what I'm doing, and you know, just try to judge the flow of the game, whether I should slow it down or speed it up. I mean, most of the time, because people always complain that, you know, I'm plus back and all that stuff. Most of the time, I do have to slow the game down a little bit to try to read them, because I mean, everybody else is just so darn good. You know, you have to have a certain level of respect, and yeah, because I can't just go into it thinking, oh, you know, I've won so many times, I'm going to do it again. No, it has to be earned every time that you play a guy, and yeah, I just always try to do the best that I can to read it correctly, and then, but once I have, you know, a thought process and a plan, then I go with it. You know, I commit to it, and most of the time it pays off, but there are sometimes that it does not.
Actually, that's interesting, because when you say that, are there certain areas of the map that maybe they don't work out so well on, or a certain weapon in a certain area? That actually reminds me of the way in America that they coach basketball defense. Like they literally calculate, like, okay, the guy is shooting 40% from this spot on the floor, but he only shoots 35 from here. So even if he gets to have a shot, I'm going to just make him go to his right here where he shoots the 35%. It's kind of like a mathematical approach, because obviously played out enough times, you're going to get that little edge. So are there literally people where you're just trying to let him stay in this part of the map, keep him off this one? Like, is this actually how you're approaching it in the game?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, of course, if they get a really good advantage, they can kind of do what they want. But when it's like the mid part of the game where we're both kind of equal, or I'm in control, I really try to limit their options based on what I think is most dangerous to me at the time. And yeah, I mean, obviously some things are kind of recycled as far as like what I do, but then, you know, I just always try to read the player. And yeah, there are some times where games on Airwalk, you know, I feel really confident because I can just tell. You know, sometimes you can just tell a player is nervous or whatever, and I will go and I will attack somebody over at GL, and like I'll engage those fights. But then other players, I just know, like, based on how they're playing, that's not the smartest idea in the world, and I need to kind of avoid those fights and, you know, try to catch them out elsewhere. Yeah, that's what I try to do all the time. I guess I don't know how else to explain it.
So in the semi-finals, you met Avic. Mm-hmm. Was it 3-2?
No, I won 3-0.
3-0. Oh, okay. So, give me a summary of what was the deciding factor in this series? Because I mean, you've played this guy quite a lot.
Yeah, his map. He won the toss and he decided to pick first, and he picked ZTN. I picked Hectic, and then he picked T7. Okay. I'm trying to remember what the other maps were. I think I picked Lost World. It would have been the fourth, and then the fifth would have been Toxicity. But I mean, on ZTN, I got a pretty good start. I mean, he managed to get the red off the start, but then I managed to guess like 2 or 3 times in a row where he was going to like double back to go get weapons. So for a long time, he didn't have a rocket launcher or an LG. So then I just tried to focus on catching him out between one of the two, and I just constantly kept cycling the armors and made sure that I kept the Mega from him, because I knew if he got the Mega, then he could go get whatever gun he wanted. And I managed to catch him out, trying to sneak his way to shards, to rockets. And once I got that kill, I focused for a long time, making sure he didn't get rocket launchers, so that he could, like, you know, try to ambush me or play defensive if I wanted to push control. And yeah, and then there I had to slow it down for a little bit because, you know, Avic's Avic, and he managed to push his way into equalizing the map. And yeah, so then I just slowed it down, just tried to read the routes he was taking, how he tried to attack me, and yeah, me managing to steal his first map, I think, really tipped the edge in my favor. because before this tournament he practiced a lot, and he's been playing very, very well, and especially his defensive game has gotten better, and that's the one thing he's sometimes lacked on. But yeah, I didn't expect to win 3-0 at all. I thought if I won it all, it would be 3-2. But we went into the second map hectic, and just going into this tournament, I don't know. I've always liked hectic. I was really glad it's back in the map pool. You know, even though there were technically 4 fast maps in this map pool, it plays totally different than them all. I mean, they're all unique in their own right, and I just really like how the map plays, and you know how you have to deal damage, and it kind of reminds me of Quake 3, really, because of how you're trying to deal damage when you die. You know, so that when you're dead, then you can try to regain control off the spawn and whatnot. And I think for the most part, this tournament on that map, and it proved in that game, I just did a fantastic job once I got kills of eliminating options once they respawned, even if I was kind of low. Like, I just really did a good job of positioning myself and moving very quickly across the map. And I won that one early into the game. And then T7 was really slow for a while, and then he went up 2-0. But then he made a mistake on trying to catch me out off of a spawn, and within like 30 seconds I got up to 100, like a 250 total stack. So then I was right back in the game, and started turning it back in my favor and tied it up. And yeah, it's crazy. I really wanted to end the game before overtime, and I had him caught at low IA, and he had some amazing rockets and damage that forced me out, and I was like, oh crap, all right, let me just leave, force overtime. You know, I don't need to push with 16 health, even though he's really weak as well. Like, why leave it to chance? And I just raced my way over to Mega, and fortunately he decided to go to red instead of Mega. And yeah, and so I got some control back, and then I ended up, winning within the first 2 minutes of that overtime, and that was that.
It's actually always felt as like a side tangent, like T7 kind of fit your style or your approach to Quake Live. Like, I always thought the best, because whenever I think of the rapha style, it's like the idea of having like a plan B and a plan B to whatever you do. So if we're going to fight for this power up, then I see like I'm probably going to lose this fight, I've got a plan B. This is like a health bubble over here. I've got a jump pad I can go up here, and I know he's going to go through the teleporter, So it's like you're always in a situation where if you play that style, you can sort of limit the amount of kills he gets when he's in control, and just wait for that one spot where you've got the really good chance to get back in. Do you agree with this kind of perspective? Do you like the map? Is this making any sense?
No, actually, yeah, that makes total sense. That's a very good explanation of, the characteristic of my style on that map. I actually have been losing that map a little bit more lately. I think that's because when I've played that map, like for example, when I played Avic, I felt a little bit more comfortable. I was in rhythm during the day. I'd been playing a lot. But then like today during the final against Evil, he was in better shape and was aiming better. So sometimes, you will have a couple crucial fights near red or something, and given the opportunity to leave, you can still do good damage, but I just didn't manage to do it. But yeah, I don't know. From the beginning, I really liked that map, and I was really glad that they kept it in the map pool because it was new to the game, but it also is a very good map. For the most part, it's very balanced. You can take so many different approaches on how you want to shut your opponent down via totally running the map based off of just items, whether you want to cut them off from just weapons and focus on that. You can play a rail heavy game and still be kind of successful. You can trap a lot of players with rockets and like corridors, because there's to get to red you have to go through like major corridors to get there quickly. And I like the aspect of the Mega being suspended in that map. It's such a crapshoot to pick it up sometimes, and can cause some really interesting shifts in the game. And yeah, I was actually kind of worried going into it though, because I think out of the past year and a half, Avic has improved so much on that map, and he plays it just about as good as anybody, and sometimes I actually think he plays it better than I do. So I was very, very thankful to walk away with the victory on it.
In terms of beyond just the in-game actions and the strategy, just the psychological battle when you play Avic, it seems like over the years, you're the one guy out of all the top players who he's just never been able to get over the hurdle against. Like, you have close games or he wins maps against you, but somehow you always get through the series. You always win it when it really matters, it seems. And it feels like you frustrate him more than other people. Why do you think this is? Do you have any perspective on it?
Like, there was a period in Quake 3 at the end when I won my first tournament where it was like player A over player B, but player B is over player C, which is over A. And it's just like styles and how you read the game and how that opponent feels to you. I'll give the quick example of Avic, Cypher, and Cooler, the differences between the three. For me, out of the three of them, Avic's like his dodging, even though it's extremely frustrating to other players and good, to me I read it very well. And so sometimes my aim picks up and my aim is pretty strong against him. It's not to say that he's bad, it's just how I think and like what I'm doing, it fits me very well. So it's normally pretty comfortable to play him. Whereas for me, Cooler, I normally have a harder time aiming based on like his dodging style, but I tend to make less mistakes against him based on how he plays, and when he wants to push in for damage, I do a good job of equalizing stuff. And then Cypher, compared to the other ones, I normally do a better job of reading where he wants to go, why he wants to do what he's doing, when he's deciding to try to back off and get items, or he's trying to catch me out in between items to try to deal damage, from place to place. Whereas with Avic, sometimes that's not the case. Like he does a lot better job, in my opinion, of moving around the map very quickly and doing what he wants. It's just in the key fights with him, I probably have better aim based off of like my thinking with his movement. So, and I think that's really helped me playing him. Of course, I've obviously had opportunities to lose to him because he's a very good player. But yeah, I have different comfort zones with each player, and then I have different weaknesses, and I guess it's just really paid out, just with the way he plays and the way I play, and I've managed to come out on top time and time again.
The fact that he's been drawn against you in so many tournaments as well, it feels like maybe he's gotten more of a rough end of the stick than some of the other top players, because he's one of those guys, like you were saying, player A over B over C over A, etc. If you mixed up the brackets and maybe he plays Cooler back when he could beat Cooler, and then he plays Cypher instead, he can beat Cypher. He's beaten Cypher, I think, more than Cypher's beaten him in best of fives. So like he potentially might have had more titles, but of the four of you, he's maybe done the worst overall if you look at the whole of Quake, because he's kind of been badly timed and when he was good compared to the next guy who was like his weakness. Now that he's said he's going to retire, as far as we know, we're not going to see him any more Dreamhacks, etc. Just as someone who's played against him so much and has seen his game and studied it, how would you describe to someone who's never seen Avic play? Like, what was his style? What was his strengths? On his best day, what was he best at?
His style and his strengths were, I wouldn't say his timing. He would rarely forget the item cycle order, though. Out of him and Cypher, he does time better. But he is one of the most fantastic players in terms of cutting people off, having extremely sharp movement, very little mistakes in that area. So it always puts you on edge because you're not sure like when he'll come rushing from somewhere. You always have to be aware of that. And his dodging was very unique based on how he fought.
How is it different from Cooler's, if you could just differentiate?
I think that's a little too hard to explain, and I'd like have to show it,
okay.
Like from games and stuff. But if you were to watch some of his games, you can see the way he dodges and sets up rails is totally different from the other players. He focuses so much on your movement and what you're going to do before he even takes the shot. He will hit some flick shots, but most of the time it's very, very calculated and set up and really tricky. And that's why he's had really, really good, strong rail for a long time. And he's just so good with every weapon. So that's why when he's needed to come back, if he's been down a weapon sometimes, it hasn't mattered. He gets in a clutch fight and he manages to pull it out because his aim is really sick. The one downfall he's had, for the most part, has been sometimes his defensive game hasn't always been the best. He's been the best when he's able to push and be very aggressive. He's like a bulldog that just wants to kill you all the time. Like I don't know.
That's a good analogy.
I don't know what else to say as far as an analogy for that.
Since Cooler retired a little bit back, now we've got Avic retiring, and in general, there's all these other games that are taking so much of the spotlight in esports. To some of the fans who are maybe more casual watchers of Quake, they might feel like, oh, everything's on a downturn, it's gradually dying. But if we assume there'll be more Dreamhacks, most of these players will come again. You actually lost to Evil this time, so there's someone else to face again. It's not like you've won every single one in a row. Is there still motivation, and is there still fun to be played if you come to another Dreamhack? Do you still have like something that makes you want to come and compete still?
I don't know, there's just something about Quake. Some intangible factor that the competition that comes from it is just amazing. And I love to play in these tournaments when, big stuff's on the line. And if I have time, if I find that I have time to dedicate and be prepared to win the tournament, then yes, I will go. If I don't, then I'll probably have to pass, because for me it's always been, hey, when I go to a tournament because I want to win, like if you're playing for a second place or just to get out of groups, you're wasting your time. I mean, part of it has to deal with prize money. Of course, it's better to get first because there's more, but I mean, you don't want to lose to other people. It's not a lack of respect. It's just when you play in a tournament of that magnitude against these type of players, you want to be able to come out on top every time. And yeah, I mean, if the opportunity keeps arising with QuakeCon and Dreamhack, I'll keep going. So, yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Another thing, the casual guy who maybe only watches the final or he watches the semi-finals of these tournaments, some of them complain like, oh, I don't want to see Rapha versus Cypher again. Maybe they want to see like a new battle they've never seen before. But I get the sense from talking to you guys and from watching the games myself, part of maybe what's made Quake special for the last few years is that since everyone's played each other so many times, you're not just watching like skill set A versus skill set B. There's all the factors of like, here's what they did last time and here's what I think he's going to, and it goes in all these levels up, but it means there's like a backstory to it that it makes everything more interesting or significant. Do you get the sense that this is part of what makes it enjoyable to play the tour?
Yeah, like I said, concerning Kilson, and it does apply to, all the other players. We've played each other so many times. I mean, I have played Cypher in a lot of finals, but I've played, I think, 7 or 8 different players in a final now. So, I mean, I've definitely had some variety to play. Yeah, I just love to play, the top 8 when it's on the line, like when we're all trying to play our best at LAN. I've actually had an idea for a long time. I don't know, if it would work, but let's say for a tournament, I'd like to see where there'd be 16 players, and you just have a straight-up round-robin tournament. And
just a league, basically.
Seriously, yeah. And for, let's say, the first 2 days, you play like 7 or 8 of your games, each day. Okay. And that way, like, a lot of players are like, oh, if this player didn't have to play this player in the bracket, maybe he would have got to the final, And now this way, you would get to see everybody get to play against each other, who would be the best overall, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think, let's say, like, after those first 2 days, you take the top 4 maybe, or you could even do top 2. It's up to whoever, and then you could either have like a semifinal or just a straight up grand final between the best finishers. And that way, I think it would give players enough chances, to try to beat each other, and it would ultimately prove like, hey, that player was the best, and they really deserved it, like out of all their wins and stuff like that. So. It would be really hard to do because it would take like, I know like at Dreamhack here, they only have like 8 computers for us. So doing something like that here isn't really possible. But if you had like 16, so everybody had their own, like you could pull it off. So, and I don't think that's ever been done before. So to me, that'd be a really interesting and fun tournament. It'd be very tiring, but I'd really enjoy it.
So next week you have IPL in Vegas and you're going for Shootmania. What is the concept behind Shootmania for you, in the sense that seems to be 2 camps of people when they heard that you're going to Shootmania? The one is like the retards who say like, oh, he's doing it for the money, as though like you're going to become rich playing Shootmania or whatever. Then there's the people who just say, oh, he's just doing it because there's no Quake or something. So it's either boredom or greed, basically. Like, but what was your thought behind why you wanted to play? Like, where did the idea come from? I mean, is it a lack of tournaments for Quake that makes you want to play it? What do you think? That's
a mixture of a lot of things, actually. I mean, I've been playing for the last month and a half so much with my teammates since I found out that, hey, like whatever team I formed was going to get an invite to IPL. You know, I was like, hey, since I'm getting this opportunity, I don't have to even qualify. I'm going to take this really seriously and make sure that, you know, they didn't give us this invite for nothing. We're going to prove ourselves. And I was kind of waiting for a while with Shootmania because I knew like the Europeans had some tournaments, but like first place was what I think like 3,000 euros maybe split between three people.
Wasn't that much.
That's not that much. So I mean, to be able to put time into the game, yeah, I just kind of waited for the chance, and of course the money really helps, you know, in IPL for having, you know, substantial prize money. But overall, as far as the game is concerned, like how I enjoy it, what I enjoy about it, what I don't enjoy. I really enjoy that it is something different from Quake. It's not duel. I like the fact that I'm having to play a team game. You know, it's definitely refreshing to me and a new aspect. I have to look at things in a different angle, from a lot of different angles now, because it's not just relying on me. It's relying on my teammates as well, and like what I do affects them if I make mistakes or I make positive impacts during the game. The game itself is really simple, like to understand. But the thing is, it's very, very difficult with how it's designed right now to be the best.
In what respect?
And what, like, so for example, the rail isn't necessarily always super consistent. It's very hard to hit. Like, you have to be like really precise. And past a certain distance, it has like some curve. So let's say they're at like 90 meters away and you have the crosshair on them. You might only hit one out of 5 or 2 out of 5.
So it's like projectile in a sense?
Yeah, kind of. And then obviously, like, defense always has rockets. So you're always having to hit direct, like bounce. You know, like spam doesn't count. I mean, spam, like the splash damage on the floor does help, like to bounce them away from the pole and whatnot. But like, I just like the aspect that it's one person against 3 people, and you know how the movement comes into play. The movement can, you know, be faster than Quake. It's not necessarily the most complicated thing in the world, but it is different. And yeah, I just enjoy it right now because of how difficult it is and how, you know, how good you have to be actually be good right now, to consistently win rounds and help your team win. What I don't like about the game, of course, I think the hit registry could be a little better. And I think if they increase that for the rail to where it would hit like it should, if they increase the rocket speed, you know, to make it, you know, more punishable to, you know, juke out in the open and all that stuff, then I think it would balance the game out. It would be really nice, and I don't think people would be frustrated with it, because I know some players do, even I do sometimes. But yeah, as far as like after IPO, you know, if there's some tournaments for the game, I'll keep playing it. You know, I enjoy the competition for it right now, and it's just always exciting for me, like when my teammates are going up on offense, to like finally just like sit down and appreciate what other people are doing and to be able to cheer for them. In Quake for so long, like I don't really get a chance to do that because I'm always playing, you know, and always like focused on like what I'm doing. But it's really nice to be in that team atmosphere, and yeah, I'm hoping we do really well at IPL. Like our shape is really coming into form. I know the Europeans are still probably going to be ahead of us right now, but we're going to do our best to try to get top 3, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
For people who are watching this on ES Reality and are coming at it from a Quake background, it feels like your performance either way is not going to help Shootmania the game, because if you win, they're going to go, well, shit game, Quake players just don't own it all, and if you lose, they're going to go, it's a shit game, you can't, even the best Quake player can't use his skills in it, you know? So is it the case that skills from a Quake player are going to play a big factor in it? Are there players who are as good or better at you in Shootmania who don't play Quake at all? Like, does it have a skill set that lines up at all?
I think just playing Quake in general really helps if you want to switch to another shooter, like because of the speed of Quake and like all the different types of thinking, with the guns and all that stuff. But the thing is, like for Shootmania, there are players from all sorts of games, from Unreal Tournament, from Counter-Strike, for God's sakes, and you know, Shootmania is so much faster with movement than Counter-Strike is. You know, Call of Duty players and all that stuff. Like, there are really good players from other games, so it's not like it's just limited to Quake. I mean, for the most part, though, you look at Colwyn, who have been doing very well. They've won almost all their tournaments. You know, Wins and Sturmy come from a Quake background, but more so Wins comes from UT. I don't know where his brother AKM comes from, though. So that's, you know, to be figured out. But and then, you know, you look at Dignitas, Garpy plays. You know, and then you've got Kova and Zacubus. I mean, there's players from all sorts of stuff. So I don't really think people will be like, oh, this game sucks because Quake players can't win, or this game sucks because it's too easy for Quake players. To be honest, it was a level playing field. Like going into it, it really didn't matter what game you were coming from. There were certain things you could take from each one, and I think it's kind of balanced out now. So now it's really about who's going to perform the best, as far as like playing on defense, and who's going to win those attack rounds. So it doesn't really matter what game you're from now. Yeah.
Okay, do you have a final message for anyone who's watched this? Someone you want to say hello to? Someone you want to thank? Standard stuff?
Standard. I just thanks for the interview. Obviously, thanks to SK and all their sponsors. And I mean, I understand why some people don't like Shootmania and all the flame on ESR, but to say it doesn't take any skill, like, that's a little ridiculous. I mean, and really biased. Do I say that I enjoy the game more than Quake? No, of course not. Quake's probably always going to be my favorite game. But, sometimes you just need something new and fresh to play. And, sometimes, like, just tournaments give way to other games. Like, just things shift and change happens, But yeah, I mean, that's it. I hope I have a nice flight home and do well at the tournament.
Okay.